Give it just a couple of moments to allow people time to join. We'll be talking about the new legislation that's coming out in Louisiana right now, Senate Bill 1, that is making its way to the governor's desk. So stay tuned in to hear about Senate Bill 1, permitless carry in Louisiana, and of course, what that means for the future of residents and citizens of the state of Louisiana to be able to carry firearms. But I'll go ahead and just get started a little bit. First off, I want to talk about a couple things. One, open carry has been legal and constitutionally protected in Louisiana, for a long time. And what does that mean? It means if we can visibly tell that it is a firearm, that you can open carry that firearm into most places. That includes handguns, rifles, etc. As long as you're not a prohibited individual, with some other exceptions on, of course, where you can carry, where you cannot carry, all of that kind of stuff. But that's been around a while, meaning Louisiana doesn't require training, a background check, permission from the state, fees, nada. As long as you're not a prohibited individual, the state of Louisiana has constitutionally protected your right to be able to carry those guns in the open. And so what we have began to move towards is more permitless carry. Now, currently there's 27 states that have some form of permitless carry or constitutional carry throughout the United States. So Louisiana is certainly not first to be able to carve this path. But last year, maybe actually it was the year before, we did pass permitless carry for veterans of the United States military that have an honorable discharge, or those that are still currently serving. If you haven't seen my YouTube video on that, be sure to check that out, because it kind of goes through the details, of that as well. But in 2024, Senator Blake Miguez has brought Senate Bill 1 that is a pretty cleaned up version of the permitless carry legislation that we've seen over the past few years in Louisiana. If y'all remember, we put a bill on the governor's desk with a supermajority vote. Unfortunately, he vetoed it, and we failed to garnish the support needed to be able to get that signed, or get that veto overridden. And so that kind of went away, but it's come back a little bit here and there. So Senate Bill 1 is the 2024 version. Like I said, pretty cleaned up. It has already gone through the committee on the Senate side. It went to a full Senate vote where it passed there. It went through the House committee on this past Monday, which I was there to be able to testify for it as well. And so it passed through the committee on the House side. I believe it was 10-3, on that vote kind of going through. And it went through the full House floor vote today. And it did pass favorably to the House floor. So it is making its path to the governor's desk to sign that into law. Now, he has already stated publicly that if you put a permitless carry bill on his desk, that he will sign that. So we don't foresee any issues with that becoming the new law here moving forward. So what does that mean? And that's kind of what this live video is to talk about, is a lot of times permitless carry is not what people believe that it may be. There are some exceptions that come to it. Most people who have gone through the process to be able to get a concealed carry permit in the past will likely continue to do so and want to do so, the way that the laws are currently at the state and the federal level. Regardless of a state mandate, obviously we all have a responsibility to be responsible gun owners. And that, part of that is, prior to carrying a gun is, being competent with that firearm, having training with that gun, having an understanding of when you should and should not use that firearm. And and a lot of times people are, they're raised with that information as they get that training and that knowledge growing up. And sometimes people have to seek that out. And probably more often than not, people need some piece of that. Maybe they need to be able to get training on working with holsters, or need to get training on defensive shooting, or get training on the legal side of information, or just being a responsible gun owner. So regardless of permitless carry, that responsibility responsibility is always going to be there. But I believe it's a good move that we are getting rid of some of that red tape. So for the people who cannot afford the concealed carry permit and going through that process, but they still have the training, now they'll have the ability to be able to carry that gun without the government red tape in place. Now, permitless carry. I mentioned in Louisiana, most of the responsible gun owners are still going to want to get the concealed carry permit anyway. Now, why is that? The reason is that you're still going to need the permit for different reasons. A big one is going to be for reciprocity, traveling around the United States. Louisiana's concealed carry permit, as of this time in 2024, authorizes and is recognized by 37 states outside of the state of Louisiana. And so if you're traveling around, that's a total of 38 states with Louisiana that you don't have to, know whether or not you're allowed to have that firearm concealed on your person, from state to state. You still have to follow all of those states' laws as you travel around, but they recognize that Louisiana concealed carry permit. And so with constitutional carry or permitless carry, there is no, sort of reciprocity agreement set up, for that kind of situation right now. And so if you want to carry in a state that doesn't authorize permitless carry for non-residents, then you're still going to have that concealed carry permit. So that's not going to, to change. And then there's states like Illinois that, while the state of Illinois does not recognize our concealed carry permit for the purpose of carrying the gun concealed on your person, as we have with other reciprocity agreements, they do recognize that concealed carry permit for you to have the gun loaded and even concealed in the vehicle with you. So you're not allowed to carry outside of the vehicle, but think about traveling through somewhere like the state of Illinois, without that concealed carry permit, the gun's supposed to be locked up, ammunition separate, and placed in a trunk if you have a trunk available as you pass through that state. So that concealed carry permit is recognized, for that benefit of traveling through there. So that would be one reason to still have the concealed carry permit. Another reason you're still going to potentially or probably want the concealed carry permit is, as of right now in 2024, you still have to have the concealed carry permit to carry in restaurants that are permitted to sell alcoholic beverages. Well, this is Louisiana, of course, so almost all of the restaurants have a permit to be able to sell alcoholic beverages. Now, there's a separate statute that prohibits firearms in alcoholic beverage outlets, including restaurants. So not just bars, but including restaurants as well. But if you have a concealed carry permit, there is an exception for those concealed carry permit holders. So you're still not allowed to carry in a bar, but with the concealed carry permit, you are allowed to carry in those restaurants that serve alcohol. You're just not allowed to be under the influence of alcohol. And so that would be another good reason that you're still going to want the permit. Now, both state and federal law have firearm-free zones where not just on the school property, but the 1,000 feet surrounding school property is known as a firearm-free zone. And both state and federal law provide an exemption for a concealed carry permit holder. Now, that exemption's only for the concealed carry permit holder. And so permitless carry under current law, even if we change things at the state level under current federal law, you're still not going to be able to carry that firearm in that firearm-free zone surrounding school property. Well, most people don't realize, how much of the municipalities become a firearm-free zone. And so down in the comments after this video, I will drop a map of just New Orleans as firearm-free zones throughout. And just looking at it, you can estimate that probably 50% of the entire city is a firearm-free zone. And so if you're trying to carry under permitless carry in those areas surrounding that school property, you can't do it. You have to have a concealed carry permit to be exempted in that 1,000-foot spaces surrounding school property. So whether you live in New Orleans or Baton Rouge or Madisonville, Louisiana, or Covington, Louisiana, or, Monroe or wherever else, when you start looking, especially inside these municipalities, and you start putting 1,000-foot rings and surrounding, not the center of the property, but all the exterior property borders, all of a sudden, a lot of those areas that we would traditionally want to carry in would be considered a firearm-free zone. So you have to have the concealed carry permit to be exempted from that. But as I mentioned before, you're still not allowed to carry on school property. So we're specifically talking about just the areas that are surrounding school property. And your excuse of not knowing a school there is not a defendable, not a defense, under the criminal law. Being that you may be, walking down the sidewalk on one street and not even realize that there's a school a block over through the woods, through the buildings, and yet you're still would be subject to carrying inside of that firearm free zone. So that's going to be another big reason that you may want that concealed carry permit. Also, just a couple of years ago, we worked to provide a separate exemption under Title 1495 as a Louisiana statute to exempt concealed carry permit holders. So prior to the change, while you could be permitted to carry a handgun concealed, you actually, could have still been, ultimately arrested and charged with and convicted of for carrying something concealed like a knife, like another weapon, right? And so we worked to get an exemption in that for Louisiana concealed carry permit holders a couple of years ago. So with the permit, you are permitted to carry things that are outside of that concealed handgun. And additionally, another good reason to have the concealed carry permit is that you can show your permit in lieu of a background check when buying guns from an FFL dealer. So if you've been out purchasing firearms over the past several years, there's been, of course, numerous times where that background check system, while it's supposed to be instant, there's been numerous times where it's gotten, hours backed up or days backed up, and you couldn't just go buy the gun and do the background check and walk out with it. You had to wait till the background check system caught up with it. And so, that would be one reason to have that concealed carry permit is when that background check system gets backed up, or for some reason, federal law changes and requires background checks on all transactions. And we were able to use that concealed carry permit, as a way to, to mitigate that. That could be a good reason to still have that concealed carry permit. And of course, there's lots of names out there like John Smith, right? Or, maybe you've got a very unique name, but you just also happen to have a similar name to someone that lives in Louisiana or maybe lives in another state that has been convicted of some sort of felony. So you've maybe experienced, you've gone to buy a gun, you've never been arrested in your entire life, you have a completely clean background, and yet you went to go purchase a firearm and the FBI said, oh, no, not yet. And they put a delay on that transaction because they were concerned that, maybe you're this other guy. And they had to have a few extra days to be able to dive in and figure out, okay, well, no, this person's not that other guy. Now they're approved and the gun store could then make that transaction with the firearm to you. And so if you're somebody like that that's gotten delayed, one way to be able to combat that has been having a concealed carry permit, because you can show that concealed carry permit in lieu of the background check when buying the guns from an FFL dealer. And so that would be another good reason, of course, to have that concealed carry permit. So kind of in summary, whether you're using it for the background checks, you want it to be able to carry things that are outside of a handgun, you want to be able to carry in the firearm free zone surrounding school property, which is, like I said, about 50% of the municipalities throughout Louisiana. Of course, you want it to be able to carry in a restaurant that serves alcohol or carry it in other states. Lots of good reasons to have that concealed handgun permit. And most people, I believe, because of the reasons I just highlighted, are really going to need the permit if you want to be able to follow the law. And of course, as responsible gun owners, I know that we want to follow the law. So it's important that we have the information and understanding of how to actually do that. And so if you know other people that are wanting to carry firearms that haven't gone through that training process, make sure you point them to the video to be able to get that information or provide that information to them so they have a full understanding of what they're jumping into. But of course, like I said, with permit or not, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are getting that training. So before, Louisiana has required a government mandated 9+ hour course. That's not going away if you want to get a concealed carry permit. That process will completely stay the same right now. But of course, if permitless carry gets signed, which we expect it to do so, then as long as you're not a prohibited individual, you would be allowed to be able to carry that firearm without that government mandated permit or training. So what do you think about that? Do you support concealed carry, without a concealed carry permit? Obviously, I know that, you support it, we want the training. We want people to be, certainly responsible gun owners, but do you support it without the required concealed carry permit? I think that I have a poll. If not, if I didn't add the poll, make sure you drop the comment down in the comments to let me know your thoughts on that. Like I said, permit process, it's not going away at all. All of that has still stayed the same as we currently sit at this time in February of 2024. But permitless carry will likely soon be signed into law by the governor of the state of Louisiana, as he has already publicly promised to do so. If you've got questions about permitless carry or any of that, I'll do my best to answer those questions. Remember that I'm providing this as educational purposes only. I'm not an attorney, so if you're wanting legal advice on any of this stuff, you've got to make sure that you consult with an attorney to do so. But I've got a pretty good knowledge base of the concealed carry permit laws and the statutes and even the permitless carry bill. So if you've got questions, be sure to drop them down in and share this information with others. And I will update y'all as soon as I have more information on it. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time.